And hello, everyone. Welcome into this live special edition of the Fieldhouse Files preview, I guess, of the Indiana Fever season. WNBA season is so much to look forward to. You have 3 games going on tonight as we go live here on a Friday evening. We're just less than 24 hours away from the Fever getting things started at home against the Chicago Sky. I'm Scott Agness, longtime beat reporter for the Pacers, for the Fever. I was been around the field house and with the Fever since 2001. So I have a great feel for this franchise, for this team, all the hardships they've been through, all the growth that we've seen in the WNBA, and now it's ready to take off even further into greater heights and even season. So that's one of the many things to look forward to here in this upcoming season. I appreciate everyone jumping on and joining me here tonight. Much appreciated as we look forward to another great season. I want to take your comments, your questions, chat as we go live on YouTube. And if you miss it, I'll be posting it on the House Files podcast. But it's just been a transformational last 12 months in the WNBA, from all the different statistics you can look at, from attendance, record highs, record sellouts. That's led by the Fever, of course. I love the fact they're leaning into every game as a home game, because that's absolutely true. And that was not always the case, obviously. And now they are the biggest ticket in town. There's more demand for them than a Pacers playoff ticket. In fact, there's just so much genuine excitement, I think, for this upcoming Fever season, and for many different reasons. And then you just had a franchise ultimately decide to go all in. And that's what you love to see, right? The fact that they are going all in on this once in a lifetime opportunity, starting with Caitlin Clark. Then they went out and recruited Kelsey Mitchell back to the team. And that's important. They wanted to make sure she was comfortable, content, happy, and excited to be back, or else they would have, I think, welcomed and allowed for her to go elsewhere. But they wanted her back. They made a priority. Stephanie White, she went over there to China, recruited her, got a feel for her, by the way, because you got a new coaching staff. But even before then, this franchise went all in, bringing back the original architect in Kelly Krauskopf, and that was so smart of them. She was the first employee here. She was the original director of basketball operations for the WNBA. I thought she should have been commissioner ultimately. Spent the last 5 years or so with the Indiana Pacers as assistant general manager. So I think that is so beneficial, because I'm viewing this Pacers, or Fever team rather, as the 31st NBA team. To me, it's it's LeBron, it's Steph, and it's Caitlin. She's absolutely in those conversations. She is a hot ticket item. Everyone wants to see her. Everyone wants to get her jersey. Everyone wants a chance to be in the same arena as her. Much different than so many different teams and such throughout. And so she is the draw. But anyway, love this offseason for this team. It started with bringing back Kelly Krauskopf. You brought in a veteran GM and Amber Cox, who does so much on all different kinds, on the business side, on the player side, on the franchise side. And so she has a wealth of experience. There's no freewheeling here or figure it out on the fly. No, they got veteran experience. We talk about that on the court. They got that certainly here from an ownership front office standpoint. And then from there, they got Stephanie White, and assistant coaches came with her. You kept Karima Christmas, whose husband was on Steph's staff and is essentially the offensive coordinator. Breon January, the defensive coordinator, but she's going to be mixing in a lot more offensively in what she's doing as she becomes more well-rounded and skilled as a coach, who probably in the next couple of years, like Austin Kelly as well, will leave and become a head coach. That's the goal, right? You don't want your staff to always be the same, because if there's not interest elsewhere, you probably do not have a good enough staff. So if you're Stephanie White, that's the type of thing you're planning ahead for. But right now they have, and she was able to get and line up exactly the staff that she wanted going into this season, to create that comfort, to create that familiarity. And I think what's also important there is, because of the lack of continuity and familiarity with the players, 6 new players, 5 returners, but a whole new coaching staff, having the coaches on the same page, plus DeWanna Bonner, who was in Connecticut with them the last couple of years, I think will help them and streamline the transition process here. However, that said, so much of what they are wanting to do is going to be much like the Pacers. It's fast paced. It's less play calling. It's read and reacting. But the other big thing in all this is you have depth, first of all. So do not expect Kelsey Mitchell to play 40 minutes per game, to play 36 minutes per game. They would really like to get them playing at, 32 minutes per game, maybe 30, just depending on the matchup, how big a lead they have, those sorts of things. Having depth is critical to both the way in which they want to play and having the durability to then get to August, get to September in the playoffs, and be playing your best basketball. That's what they're gunning for. So, for example, leading into opening night coming up Saturday against the Chicago Sky, they're going to play it cautious, and Sophie Cunningham will not be in uniform. She has already been ruled out. Did not really practice this week, dealing with a right ankle injury that she suffered in the third quarter, I think it was, in Atlanta, their final preseason tune-up. She's optimistic. She told Stephanie White from that night, hey, I'm good. I'll be fine. I'll be ready to go. And then we saw today after practice, they worked on the main floor there at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, and she was the one that made that half-court spot for the $100 bill. And right before that, Amber Cox, the GM, said, I'll double it. Well, it turned out Damiris Dantas, who we also did not see in the preseason, she knocked it down. So they both took home a nice little Benjamin there to begin the season. And if you have not seen that video, highly encourage you to go to my YouTube channel and check that out, because it was a fantastic response by everyone involved, right? Lexi Hall was there clapping. Kelsey Mitchell was over there saying, hey, you should have been practicing if you're knocking down that shot. And then you saw Sophie jump up and down, obviously notable because it was that right ankle. Feel fine. Look fine, certainly out there. And then it was Caitlin collapsing to the floor, probably upset, annoyed that she did not get it. She is incredibly competitive about anything. So if she doesn't win, she's going to want a rematch. She's going to want a lot more to come her way. So that's one of the interesting things to watch, no matter the situation. Absolutely. But she will not play Sophie coming up. So I expect them to utilize certainly that starting lineup that we all expected, with DeWanna Bonner in there, who did not start in their final preseason game. Sophie started for her. But I think you'll also see a lot of lineup fluidity. And what I mean by that is Steph's going to roll with who has the hot hand, what lineup is working. She's big into analytics. She does not allow that to dictate the way in which they play, but she allows that to inform how they play. So she leans heavily on the analytics of lineups, on opponents, all those different things. And so if a group is clicking, maybe that group finishes the fourth quarter. It does not mean you should read into that situation or she doesn't like this player. It's like, no, that group was clicking. So maybe one night it's Lexi Hall finishing. Maybe it's one night DeWanna Bonner. The next night, Damiris Dantas, instead of Aliyah Boston or something like that, right? This is a team that's going to play a lot of players. It feels like Stephanie White really wants to play 9 or 10 and play that deep. Remember, there's just 11 players on this roster. They can go up to 12, but not this team currently, given their salary cap. They really need to wait about a month into the season, and then they can prorate a contract, which would satisfy and be under the salary cap. And so eventually they'll get to 12 players, but not just yet. Again, a team went all in the offseason, got the front office. You got the coaching staff that you wanted. Then you went out in free agency, and not surprisingly, everyone was interested in joining the Fever, right? The spotlight, the attention, the potential brand deals, the immediacy with the focus on winning and not wasting not just a day, but a moment. The new practice facility coming up in a couple of years. Now, in the grand scheme of things, talking league-wide, one of the most interesting things coming up will be the new collective bargaining agreement. Obviously, the players as a totality have already opted out, as they're able to do so for the 2026 season, next season. So obviously there's going to be conversations and ongoing discussions, but among the biggest things they have to figure out are the contracts, right? Like a Caitlin Clark rookie card goes for more than her $70,000 or so rookie salary. You need to see that bumped up. Now, how high? Maybe that gets up to 200,000 or so, whereas the max contract is somewhere around 250,000 right now. Maybe that doubles. Maybe that gets to 500,000. We don't know yet. That's purely speculation. But I think the players want a greater great. They already got their charter flights. They're already getting more team support. A lot of the teams, not all, but many of the teams have gotten their practice facilities or they are in the works right now. But salaries are the biggest thing, especially trying to keep players here nearby in the States throughout the off season. I mean, 70,000. You got to keep in mind it is a 6-month deal, right? Because the season's not super long, not nearly as long as the NBA, for example. But that said, given the TV numbers, the attendance draws, the merchandise sales, especially here locally with the Indiana Fever, certainly they're in line for a pay raise. To how much? We will see. And also, the WNBA will be negotiating other TV rights deals, right? They already have existing deals because their deal is chunked along in with the NBA. So there's NBC, there's Prime Video, there's ESPN, ABC, but obviously they'll strike a deal, I think, with Ion. The games tonight, opening night, are on Ion, whereas tomorrow coming up, they're on ABC. So that's additional money that goes directly to the WNBA in addition to other deals. Seems like every morning, the Fever, for example, whom I cover, are announcing a brand deal. Like a chicken salad restaurant here had a new deal here recently. Old National Bank has a signature deal, and I guarantee you that money's greater than the salary, for example, of Caitlin Clark. I think it's notable too, speaking of going all in, they have, from a media perspective, last year adding local TV for more than a dozen games. This year adding local radio for the entirety of the season. I'm so glad to see that. As a radio guy myself, as a play-by-play guy, that is fantastic. That is reaching your audience where they are and being widely available. And having the charter flights also makes that much more accessible because you have those seats on the plane, easy to throw a couple more people on there. All you got to do is pay their hotels, pay their game check, and that's all you need. So I love the fact they went all in with local radio, which I think many of you will appreciate here. And then how about national TV? Obviously, the game size grew from 40 games to 44 game season this year. I think it'll go even further in future years. Maybe you ultimately get to 50 games next year as you have with the new CBA. And on top of that, you'll have 2 more teams joining the fold with Toronto and with Portland, by the way. So that will be really interesting to see what levels they try to add on top to the season as we look forward to, what things look like here in the coming weeks. All right, I have a lot more to say, but as more and more people pile in here, I also want to include you, all of you, in the conversation as well. So I'm going to speed through some of these comments and questions and see what I can. Apparently, a 7-point favorites for the Pacers. Certainly hope Fever do better than that. Would like to see Caitlin and a certain someone start crying about a special whistle. Mike says, I don't know. The Sky's a better team than last year. So's the Fever. Sophie's out. Yeah, it's hard to set these lines, first of all. Second of all, I would like to emphasize here that the lines are not what the books necessarily think will be the end result. It's setting up the line so that there's even money on both sides, so that hopefully, and for them, they're doing is they don't really have a huge loss. They're setting themselves up. So that tells me there's good action on both sides. But yeah, I figured 6-7 is probably about right. First game of the season. You don't know what these teams look like. I love the upgrade, by the way, with the Chicago Sky going to get Tyler Marsh, who I covered with the Mad Ants, with the Indiana Pacers. Then he moved on and went to the Las Vegas Aces. I wrote several stories about him at fieldhousefiles.com, by the way. Susie says almost 18 hours to game time. Yep, absolutely. We're looking forward to it. And everyone in attendance will receive a red towel. It's going to be a sellout. I encourage everyone to get down there early. It'll be a great time as now we have a much greater expectation of what's to come inside that building and with the team. Obviously, you have the free agent upgrades, which I'll get into in a little bit. But we weren't exactly sure what to expect at this time last year. In fact, at this time last year, I was on the road in Connecticut. That's where Caitlin and the Fever started, and that's where she made her debut on the road, notably. And it was just a tough one. She was thrown around like a rag doll, the physicality, the officiating, ultimately losing. And I think, remember, that was against Stephanie White's Connecticut team. Their last game was against Stephanie White and the Connecticut team. And now the Fever have more experience. They have more toughness. Caitlin's stronger, more comfortable in her role and everything. And she had a phenomenal offseason. I can get into that if you would like, beyond just the adding strength part, which is inevitable for a 23-year-old who hit the weight room and had a positive offseason. But yeah, it's going to be an electrifying season pending health. You don't like the fact that Caitlin was a little bit limited in the preseason, didn't play in that first game, that Sophie Cunningham got hurt in the last one, and Demiris Dantas, one of the 5 returning players from last season, did not play at all in the preseason. All right, what else do we have here? I'm impressed with the Fever front office. They didn't miss at all, said Kit. Yep, I would agree with that. Certainly kind of surprised that Celeste Taylor, Grace Berger waived by their teams. Not necessarily. I mean, Celeste Taylor was a second-round pick. Grace Berger certainly was a first-round pick. But that's on a Minnesota team that won the championship. I'm sorry, didn't win the championship, but was in that title game, right, against New York, and really should have won if not for the officiating. So we'll see. What else do we got? It's amazing how fast Sophie's become an important and integral part of the team. Absolutely. I think she was underappreciated. I don't know if undervalued is the right thing, but maybe a lesser expectation in many people's minds. But she's been the life of the party in practice. You think Caitlin's loud? Sophie's much louder, and that's fine. As the girls are still trying to get familiar and comfortable with one another and get on the same page. I think you saw in that SI video on YouTube of the familiarity and comfort with Caitlin and Aliyah, and Dewana just wasn't there yet, whereas Kelsey also has already had that connection with them. Peggy says a lot of people traveling have a tough time getting there due to weather. Ryan Rucco stuck in the airport in New York. Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if he's out yet, but that's going to be tough. I mean, there has been nasty storms here outside my window, downtown Indianapolis. It certainly impacted Indy 500 Fast Friday nearby at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Not a big weather guy, so I haven't looked for what it's supposed to be like Saturday, but hopefully everybody with a ticket or working the game or covering the game is able to get there. Sophie's listed as out. Yes, Sophie is out for tomorrow. Can the Fever waive an unprotected player in a month to bring in 2 players instead of 1? I like who are you referring to? I guess. In terms of that unprotected, like a guaranteed contract player, is that what you mean there? You certainly can, but then it costs you. So that's the challenge there, right? Someone like Michaela Timpson, a second-round pick, did not have a guaranteed contract. So there's more flexibility within her contract. But here's the challenge I see with expansion is you're going to have more roster spots. That means more players available, but does it dilute the product as well? What you also need is more stars to be spread out, right? If you're New York, you don't want to lose Sabrina Ionescu, but if you're like Golden State or Portland, like you're sitting back thinking, man, it would be phenomenal if you could get Sabrina out on the West Coast where she's beloved and played college ball. Those are the interesting things to watch here. But Justin, I think you'll just see more than anything, the Fever will just bring in a player either waived by their team or one of the players maybe that they cut on their team that they had high hopes for, right? And this is the challenge with not having any players that you can sign to a player development contract or anything. This is what I was talking with many people across the league. It's like, it feels like they should have something similar to a 2-way contract, although maybe the player is not eligible to play in games or only due to injury if there's, say, 3 injuries or something. But there should really be like 2 players on a roster. Maybe they make $40,000 or something like that. Still better than nothing, but not great. It's half a rookie scale right now. But forget the money, but the point of it is to be in practice every day. Maybe your practice body, but you can develop. And as these players come out of college after just 4 years now, no more COVID year, you need a couple of years to develop, especially those second-round picks and third-round picks that maybe don't have a real opportunity. And that's a player like a Grace Berger I see is the last year she really should have been in maybe a player development role. And then who knows what she was looking at, just because now they've added more talent here. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. A lot more comments here. Good feedback. Maybe Caitlin Clark's dad will get interviewed again on national TV and speak about officiating. That would be great. I mean, he said his piece. I don't think there's really a need to say it again. Officiating obviously has to improve, but outside of that, Where are you going to get the officials from? That becomes one of the hardest things, right? I think the NBA are the best in the world, and we all still find ways to critique and criticize there. So I like when her dad talks, Brent, great guy. I love when he speaks up. Mom obviously doesn't want to, and that's totally fine. But I think it's better to learn more about them and Caitlin and the family and what drives them and the success much more than kind of from that fan standpoint. What's being done about the officials? All right, now we're going to the officials conversation. I have not heard. I'm not sure. I think they're probably just bringing in better training. I've observed that there's more officials coming from the G League, for example, as well. So there's a combo there. And then you just hope quality officials are rewarded and get the high profile games. But the league hadn't announced anything significant or any great moves that they have done or changed or corrected. Hello, Jency. Susie says, is it up to the coach which players do pre and post pressers? I understand the players are obligated, but is it the press or the coach that assigns? Coach has nothing to do with it. They don't. So that would be the PR staff, and the Fever got a new PR staff this season. We're going to miss Ryan. He did a phenomenal job last season. He will be missed. Don't know why he was exactly let go. It didn't make sense to me, but he will be missed. They brought in a couple new ones from the NWSL, two different teams. Jackie is one and Meg is the other. They are going to generally, I think, usually pick who had the best game. So who's your top scorer or who is the impactful player. And then you can also lean on media to put in requests. We're able to request players. So if there's an overwhelming request, you'll either get them at the podium or off to the side. It's still frustrating that the WNBA hasn't opened their locker rooms again like the NBA has. I think that's critically important for the others to help tell their story, right? We can request them too, but it's so much easier to both tell the color and the story of a season and a team when you can just go into the locker room and ask Aliyah a couple questions. DeWanna Bonner's laughing about something, so you ask her. Sophie's in the corner. There's something. And, oh, by the way, we haven't talked to Demirs Dantas yet, so we go over there and have a 5-minute conversation with her, even off the record, maybe just checking in on her. We haven't even had the opportunity yet to talk to Demirs. Hey, how you doing? After the death in her family, or I wanted to write about her and the Fever playing Brazilian national team. She has so much familiarity with that team. But nothing there. So to answer that question, it's the PR director for the Fever in combination with the Fever, the press. So obviously we're going to want Caitlin Clark after the first game, and then probably whoever else shines. Maybe it's DeWanna Bonner. Maybe it's Aliyah Boston. It could be Natasha Howard. Maybe it's Lexi Hall off the bench. You just don't know. But it's almost a given that Caitlin will talk. So far, they have done a little bit less media than last year. The challenge last season was the first month of the season. She was talking at shoot around before the game and after the game. She's required, if requested, to talk two of those, but they kind of got rid of one of the pre-games. She really wanted to do shoot around, but because of so many people covering this league are part-time, the league especially, and the Fever wanted her to talk shoot around because you'd have it more widely covered there. Hope that accurately explains it. It's second nature to me because I'm part of it, so I tried to simplify it there. Yeah, Indy weather. Rain should be over by midnight, clear tomorrow. Great. Love to see that. I see Wings Lynx had 26 fouls called in the first half. Yeah, first game. You got to remember, it's the first game of the season for everyone out there, man, right? The announcers, the officials, the players, the coaches. Someone's going to get upset. Someone's going to throw a fit. Someone's going to challenge a play they should not have. You can't make any grand proclamations until a couple weeks into the season. But yes, we don't want to see high fouls or high free throw volume. You just want a free-flowing, a good rhythm to the game is what we're all after. I totally understand that. Cheryl Miller has a new program called Upshot to develop players. Okay, have not heard of that. I'll look into it. Is Sophie okay? Yeah, she's doing well. Is limited in practice these last couple of days, didn't practice. But clearly was bouncing around and shooting and feeling right. Check out my last video, as I said earlier, on YouTube. Her knocking down the half-court shot. I think she jumped up and down about 15 times. She clearly was not in significant pain. Now, that is different, to be clear, to when you're guarding and cutting laterally and sprinting forward versus just jumping. But what it does suggest and indicate is that it's not a bad ankle sprain, meaning it's probably not a grade 2. It's certainly not a grade 3, which means grade 1, you're kind of day-to-day. You're probably going to miss a game or two, but she should go back. So I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. Stephanie White has continued to emphasize over the last several weeks, and really since she took this job, they're going to have the big picture in mind. That doesn't just mean one game from now or a month from now. That means the totality of the season. So players are going to play less. They're going to utilize their depth. Those were initial priorities from Stephanie White immediately. And then those players out around the court, they want to maximize their time while they're out there. And then they want, from an endurance standpoint, to be in incredible shape. And so by the end of the game, not only do they have depth, but the Fever can wear teams out and race up and down the court, and other teams are just exhausted. So that's what you're looking at. That's what you should be prepared for. Do not be concerned if Caitlin plays 30 minutes or Kelsey Mitchell plays 28 minutes or anything like that. That's by design. They're going to figure these things out. They want to set the tone early for the season. They want to try new combinations. They have to establish their chemistry, obviously. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't be surprised too if the finishing lineups are different from the starting group or different from the core players that maybe you're most familiar with. Go hit the like button. Yeah, there you go. Appreciate it. Thanks to everyone, by the way. Y'all have been really nice. Subscribing to my site, Fieldhouse Files, subscribing to my YouTube page, being so friendly and leaving feedback, both positive and helpful comments in that comment section. So very much appreciated as I continue to try to be your conduit from the team to the fans and ask questions and tell you the stories that you had no idea about. I think that's the most important thing as a beat writer. Not only is it the nuts and bolts, but it's to inform you about this team, about the players, about the coaching staff, about how they are made up of and what the team goals are and how they want to operate, all those different things that make you cling to a team. And during the game, you see something, you're like, oh yeah, we already knew that. That's why I follow this team or anything like that. Those are the things that I really look to do. What do I think about Michaela Timpson? I think she's something special. I do. But I think obviously a first-year player coming out of college, still very raw, especially from a WNBA standpoint. I was not surprised whatsoever that the Fever kept her on the roster. She was a favorite from day one. I know it's overused, but she was a player, for example, that they were like, I can't believe she was still available there at like pick 19 when they had their first pick. Now, everybody kind of says that about their draft picks, right? But that's certainly how the Fever felt, especially Lynn Dunn. I know she was ecstatic, with that move. And so she's the last player to make the roster. I didn't think Jaylen Brown had a good camp from what we saw. Again, I like to add the context. We're watching at most 20 minutes of practice plus the preseason. So we're not able to see them throughout an entirety of a practice and when she's emphasized or when she's in lineups and things like that. But she didn't shoot it well. I think she was like 4 of 16 or something, 4 of 25. I can't remember. But I wrote about that. She was the last one to get waived, a second-year player who probably will find a way in this league. But again, think about if she was on a development contract for this group in particular. Maybe she would be something here in a couple weeks, a couple years. What else? Evelyn. Yeah, Sophie's out tomorrow. I already said that. More fouls called, maybe refs getting better. There's no correlation there. No game flow there. Sounds like 2/3 of the half is free throws. I hope not. That's not at all what we want to see, right? We want to see flow. You want to see pace. If you're the Fever, for example, you're dictated by that pace. So you don't want to take the ball out of a net, out of the free throws. You want to get stops, race to the other end. You could get shots up in 2 and 3 seconds, for example. So that's what you're looking at. And if any of you have been following the Pacers, it's very much a similar style. And they added that versatility, high pick and roll sets will be very effective. And then the other thing is when they get into called sets, when it's not just free flowing, what they're also going to do is get into their second, third, and fourth read. Excuse me. That was something that I don't think the Fever did a very good job of last season. Something would break down in that first set, and then Caitlin would have to figure it out on her own. So maybe she'd launch a long three or just pass someone open. I think you'll see a more deliberate, decisive offensive attack for the Fever this season, in addition to a much better defense. They can't rank 11th of 12 of teams. And by the way, coming in, you got defensive coordinator Breon January, who longtime Fever fans will remember as a Fever draft pick by Kelly Kroskoff, who as a WNBA champion, as a defensive stout in the league, really great player. And so she's instilled a lot. The players have been really impressed with what she's done for the defensive end. So if they can rank top 6 or better, I think you got to feel good about the way in which the Fever are headed and their direction and all those sorts of things. I saw Timpson in combine games on YouTube. She did really well with the Olsen team. Yeah, the combine games aren't all the best players as well, but those definitely matter. Fever had individuals down there. I was down there at the Final Four as well. It definitely means something, but also not a ton. Like a Paige Beckers was in the championship game. She wasn't playing in the combine. They need to up the level of talent. I think they need to up the level of uh, the largeness of the size and scope of the combine, but I'm glad they started to do that. I think it was a couple of years ago while everyone's down there from the Final Four. There was also interviews that went down there. I just came back from Chicago where it was the NBA draft combine, much larger scope, but also the league's been there, been in existence for like 3 times the amount of time, like 90 years, I think, compared to about 29 years as this is the new year for the WNBA. Do I think Stephanie is like Rick in the way they both coach their teams? I think there are a lot of similarities. I think Stephanie has more personality. I think Rick has a lot more experience. He obviously has that championship under in his belt from Dallas. But in terms of empowering his players, in terms of empowering his assistant coaches, that's another big way that I think they are very similar. To be analytically driven, there's another similarity. So it's unreal the parallels between the franchises. When you go Tyrese and Caitlin, Aliyah and Miles Turner, the pace at which they want to play, the number of threes they want to get up, the average level defense that they should be playing at. Although the Pacers were better than average over the final couple months of the season, I think they ranked 8th, and that's a big reason why they have reached the Final Four here. Love DD. I hope she will be amazing this season. I would love to see her as well. We have not talked to her. We have not seen her in the preseason after she had that difficulties with her family and having the death in the family. And so we obviously wish her well, but we have not seen her in the preseason. So I look forward to seeing that. Third quarter interview with Fever Brazil game broadcasters interviews the VP of training talking about the changes. Yeah, there was a little bit of that, but a lot of them are also buzzwords, right? But I did write that down and take note of some of the things. Sue Blau, I interacted with her a ton back when I was a ball boy for 10 years. She was an official. I would always take care of the officials in my role. So I have a good relationship with them. There's obviously emphasis coming in. Freedom of movement, I think, should be especially important, but also I want to see that they're not just buzzwords to start the season. How are things called 2 weeks into the season, not just the first week of the season? So we'll see there. Anyways, I loved a lot that this Indiana Fever team did this past off season with Caitlin Clark. What a incredible off season that she had, both from feeling free and being just a young lady for the first time, it seems like, and being out of that spotlight. And what I mean by that is she didn't have basketball obligations and commitments that she has had probably the most free time she thinks since middle school, right? Because after that, you're going AAU to high school to, and she played other sports as well, by the way. And then you go to college and you're playing year round. Her senior year, they went to Croatia, which she loved. And by the way, do not be surprised that the WNBA tries to go overseas. And I wouldn't be surprised if they sent the Fever as their first team as well. So that would be interesting and unsurprising there. But Caitlin added new endorsement deals. She had all these different opportunities that had to be incredible for her. Speaking to Suits, speaking to Lily, going to the Masters, and speaking with a great group down there. I think it was with Mercedes, for example, recording new commercials for State Farm, for Gatorade, getting in with Dude Perfect at Hinkle Fieldhouse. But the other big thing is, as much as she is a night owl, Caitlin made a point to always get her workouts in. I think it was basically 5 days a week throughout the off season, plus lifts. She was basically in there by 8 a.m. and got in focused, determined, and specific work every single day with Sarah Kessler in the training room. And then with Keith Porter, with her boyfriend, Connor McCaffrey, and with others as well, then on the basketball court. Split time at Hinkle, got work in at Gamebridge Fieldhouse as well. Obviously, places she has full access to. So that's significant. Played in a couple golf tournaments. I was there at that first one down in Florida, which it was a lot of fun for her. But I think she was like, guys, I don't have high expectations. I haven't played much. I love golf, but don't have high expectations. And she just had fun with it, including playing the front nine, I think it was. Yeah. Maybe it was the back nine with Nelly Corda, the number one player in the world in U.S. golf, which was fantastic. And then obviously with Annika Sorenstam as well. Going to the Masters was one of her highlights, certainly. But she did so many fun and exciting things, including surprise at the convention center when Visit Indy honored the Indiana Fever, which Caitlin obviously had a big piece to do of being huge for tourism in the state over the last year. They had all those sellouts, officially 16 of their 20 games, but the games that weren't sellouts couldn't have been short by more than 1,000 or so as well. Just incredible numbers they did for TV. Every game, basically over 1 million on average. And before that, games or the draft, nothing really got 1 million outside of maybe some WNBA finals or anything else like that. So you cannot underestimate the impact that she has had, that she will continue to have. And you just want her to be healthy right now because obviously just shy of 100% with that left leg, I think quad thigh area injury that she's overcoming. And maybe it's an overuse. Maybe she got uh, pegged in it, during practice. Sometimes you just don't know how it happened. And that was the case for her. It just came up and has limited her some in training camp, but it's not going to limit her overall. She's not going to let it. She doesn't want to miss time. She is competitive like hell. Played, in one and a half of the preseason games, essentially, is looking forward to coming up and playing on Saturday. And that will be a fun one. By the way, I'll be curious and feel free to argue back if you want, but Fever Sky, not a rivalry. It's not. We had another reporter today, national reporter, come in, and I respect the work, but it's like, I think sometimes you can come in with preconceived notions and a story already built and you just want quotes. And in this instance, it's not a rivalry, Fever and Sky. There's familiarity, right? And yes, there's Angel and Cardozo. And now there's Tyler Marsh too, who has great familiarity as well with the Pacers organization and such. But just because of the 3-hour drive and geographically being so close to everyone doesn't mean it's a rivalry. Doesn't mean I don't want it to be one, but it means you got to play meaningful games. Really, you need to play meaningful playoff games. And on top of that, both teams need to win. So if they meet in the postseason and the Fever win, and then in a couple of years, the Sky win, then it might be a rivalry. And it's never been one. When I was a ball boy from 2003 to 2012, you never thought anything about the Chicago Sky. You didn't. Now, several years later, when they were still busting up there, it's not one. And then now in present day, I don't think it is. Now, that said, if that's what some fans want, great. If that's what gets the buy-in from TV networks, great. And that's basically what Caitlin has said here. It's good for narratives. It's good for promotion. And if people like it, then it's probably healthy for the league. But I'm telling you, there's no one on the Fever sitting there giddy about this matchup because of who they are playing. They are just ready to go because it's opening day on Saturday, that it's their next opponent, that it's their first chance to play a meaningful game. I haven't talked to any of this guy yet. We certainly will coming up on Saturday. But from a Fever standpoint, it is not a rivalry. It's just another opponent. I don't think right now the Fever have any rivalries. I would say back in the day, it was the Detroit Shock when it was the Fever and Shock battling it out from like '07 to 2010 or so. That was a team that came to mind. Maybe the Connecticut Sun back then, because both teams were just good every single year, and they would inevitably meet in the postseason. But right now, at least my opinion, I value yours, but to me, being there every day, I don't see this as a rivalry whatsoever. Jency says, have I received Howard's new book about Caitlin? I have. It's right over here. I got it in the mail yesterday, in fact, but haven't had time to look into it and read it at all. I'll be curious what the idea behind it is and the route he went to take. Christine Brennan has written a book about it. That's coming out, I think, in July as well. She was around much last year, so I obviously have a better feel for, I think, what she is writing about Caitlin transforming women's sports as a whole. But I look forward to diving into it as well. And I think I plan to have him on the podcast. Maybe I'll release an excerpt because Fever fans, I know you want to read and learn as much as you can about Caitlin. And really that goes for the entire league as a whole. John says it's a made up rivalry. Yeah, I agree. Grounded Roots, hope you get that mic set up where you need it. What do you mean by that? Tiff agrees. Yeah, not a rivalry. Even Caitlin Clark says it was. Yeah, last year especially. And that even goes back to the rookie of the year conversation. And I still think it's disingenuous. Whoever voted Angel gave her the one vote for rookie of the year. But remember that last month of the season? Somehow it was manufactured that there was a battle for rookie of the year. It wasn't even close. I'm sorry. Again, that was an example of creating a false narrative, and then everybody ran with it. You don't need to run with it. We can speak honestly and open here and give everybody their praise as due. But in this case, it was all Caitlin, and that was a no-brainer. I mean, she was an all WNBA first team selection. It was clear as day. Ace is going to bust the W Open. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Tiff, but there you go. Maybe dominate this league. John, they need to be made naturally, not forced. That is what the media, because that is what the media want. I totally agree. 100% agree. It needs to be formulated naturally. Maybe if you're talking local, that's what we saw with the Pacers Bucks a little bit. So many different incidents. The Pacers got the best of them, then the Bucks beat them. Bucks won the title. Bucks were so dominant against the Pacers. I'm serious. I think they had won, 10 of 12 meetings and averaged by 20 points per game. But then it was the Pacers that have knocked them out of the in-season tournament. Then the Bucks did them the next year. But then the Pacers knocked them out of the postseason the last 2 years, for example. That is, I think, a rivalry, although it's tilted more towards the Pacers. Now we'll see what the Bucks look like next season. But you're right. It's got to come naturally. I would totally agree. So anyway, what is your opinion on the Fever versus the rest of the W? Good question, John. I would probably pencil them in as fourth right now going into the year, maybe third. You got Minnesota, New York. I'm not sure what the Aces will look like. They concern me because of wholesale changes, both to their roster, but especially to their coaching staff. So I know one of the commenters earlier mentioned about the Aces, Tiff. I'm very curious what they look like. So if I had to pinpoint them, and I don't really make predictions, I foresee the Fever floor being the third seed overall, the third best team in the league with the potential to win it all. Now, will they? We'll see. We need to see a lot more and how quickly this team can come together. Can they be injury free for the most part? That's what you're looking for. But I think at minimum, they are the third best team in the league. And that's a significant jump, obviously, from where they have been, especially over the last decade, where before last year, they were irrelevant, by the way. Well done, Scott. Appreciate it, JJ. Thanks for tuning in. I see your Iowa Hawkeye. It was so much fun going to Iowa City for the first time a couple weeks ago. It seems like that was just a couple days ago, but everyone was so welcoming, so friendly. It clearly was a nice Midwest town there in Iowa City, and so many fans just eager to welcome and virtually hug Caitlin as she and her teammates came there to Iowa City for the preseason game. And I think the other thing that was cool about it that Caitlin previewed and then came true was, look, her teammates are going to feel the love as much as she would. That if they're Caitlin fans and Iowa fans, they're going to embrace her team being the Fever, and they absolutely did. And so I think a lot of her teammates were taken aback and appreciated by that. And that was something that was cool to see develop and emerge, especially from the team intros on back. Do I think the Fever have a actual backup for Caitlin? Absolutely, but it's not like a specific backup, right? It's players that can handle the ball. Sydney Colson is going to play more than you think. I think she's probably good for 10 to 12 minutes per game as a third-string point guard, but obviously Caitlin can handle the ball. Kelsey can. Sophie will do it a lot. DeWanna Bonner might at times as well. She can really play the 1 through 4. So, again, with Stephanie White, like Rick Carlisle, you got to remove the stereotypes, like the four-man can't handle the ball, or any player can bring up the ball on this offense. They just want to get it down quickly, and players can do different things here. So I think Sydney Colson absolutely is in the rotation to start as unofficially that third-string point guard, a veteran who's won titles and brought that experience here to Indianapolis. Now Iowa West and Arizona. Gotcha, JJ. Very cool. V says if the WNBA can get to the matter of basketball and drop all the drama, some natural and healthy rivalries will develop and help the league. Well said. Completely agree there. Less drama, less negative criticism beyond the basketball. Basketball criticism is totally fair. you're into this business to talk good and bad about the games, about the teams, officiating as well. I think all that should be critiqued. It's when you get the unnecessary nonsense and things that have nothing related to the games at hand that is ridiculous. And you're right. Those are the things that I think the W and all of us want to weed out so that we can celebrate the successes and critique what's been going on and see a brighter future for the league as it goes into this next decade of a collective bargaining agreement. Caitlin gets it going even out of the net, just got to inbound quickly. Absolutely, Scott. No doubt about that. The faster, here's the other mindset in all this. The faster you can get it out of the net and down the court means the defense isn't set. It also means the defense is more random, and it means you can capitalize off of it. So that's what the Fever and many teams are obviously trying to do. Caitlin's the kind of person people want to hang out with for sure. She's silly. She's genuine. She's her personality is contagious, right? I think Sophie Cunningham, Aliyah Boston is another one where they're just funny. They're uniquely themselves. Caitlin can get a little bit unserious. That's the term I like to do for Caitlin at times. Like during practice today, where she crashed out on the floor and was frustrated and pissed off because she didn't win the half court shot, even though the money was doubled. She's competitive. She's the most competitive person that I have ever covered, from Ben Matherin to Tyrese Halliburton to David Wett. No, it's absolutely Caitlin Clark. She doesn't want to lose in a flip cup or a three free throw shooting contest or who could put out towels fastest in the arena. She's going to create a competition no matter what. What do you think the CBA next year, or what do you think they can get? That's so open-ended and hard to say, but I think salaries will kind of generally double is what I'm looking at. Again, it's very early on in the process. We don't know exactly what they're discussing or debating, but we obviously know the general things that the players would like to see. I'd like to see a couple more roster spots for player development like they talk about. They already got the chartered flights, or else that would be one of the key items. I think maybe childcare or treatment for when you have pregnancy and that type of thing might be an issue. But right now it'd be purely speculative of what it would look like or what it should be or any of that, just because we don't know kind of the talking points that they're really emphasizing, other than the obvious ones that just make sense as the league grows, has more money, and the players want more share of the pot, as they should. As everybody grows, everybody's pot should get bigger, right? Mike says, I hope they don't get over greedy. Keep it real. Absolutely. But also, any good negotiation, right? You ask for a little bit more than you want. See how much you can get. And that goes for the owners as well. They aren't wanting to share as much of the pie. And then you hope at the end of the negotiation that both sides are a little bit uneasy, that both sides are a little bit uncomfortable because they had to give back a little bit more. To me, that's the true nature of a good negotiation there. Both sides got something they really wanted. Both sides were a little bit uneasy about how it finished. In turn, you got the deal done. Therefore, everybody gets money because the league continues on. And so I doubt there will be a league stoppage or anything like that, especially given that they're going to have a whole offseason to figure out. But the later it goes, the less time you have for everything else, for the draft, for free agency, for all those different things. And to keep in mind, you have 2 new teams starting next year. So that's another piece of the pot in the puzzle that has to be factored in here, with Toronto and Portland joining the fold next year. So then right now you have 13 teams as Golden State's in. Next year we'll bring it to 15. Really, you need to add one more. 16 is a phenomenal number to split, to have 8 playoff teams, whatever, and then half it after that, right? And get down to your champion. I would love to see that. You could have 8 teams in each conference, for example. It just makes a lot of sense. Do I think there will be a lockout? Like I said, I doubt it. I don't think it'll get to that point. I hope it does not get to that point. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and when it does, and when they can get to the negotiating table and talk things out. But the notable thing here is I think there's just 2 players, if I remember right, that are on multi-year deals beyond the rookie contracts. Everyone else is a free agent after this season, which will lead to a hell of an exciting free agency as well. A lot more players likely to move teams because you have that flexibility. Is there a hard cap? What does all that look like? What are the penalties for going into it? All those different things that have to be worked out here. But Probably should wrap up here. It's gone long and a lot more to cover, write about, and such at fieldhousefiles.com and on my Fieldhouse Files YouTube page. But it's crazy. Been covering this team since 2012. The 10 years before that, I was a ball boy. So great to see the level in which this league is now covered. I mean, there was a TV station from Iowa City here today and for the weekend because of Caitlin. You had an ESPN reporter, a Yahoo Sports reporter covering this team. In the past, I mean, talking 3 years ago, you might have had 2 people at practice. You might have 3 reporters stay after the game to ask questions, if that. It makes a world of difference, not only having a winning team, but having a transformational, generational player in Caitlin. But also, I don't want to limit that of Aliyah, who was part of the movement. Kelsey's been huge, but she goes back to 2017. Kelly Kroskoff was still team president at the time, and now she's finally able to enjoy the fruits of all those different things and all those different challenges that she's had to go through, whether it's the arena she played at, the lack of interest, commercial flights, all those different things. And then the seismic changes the league continues to experience over the last year. But I think it'll be a very good Fever season, obviously. I think they'll be a top 3 team in the league. With 44 games, I think 30-plus wins is absolutely in the cards for this group. It'll be just about navigating the first month or 2 of the season. Stephanie White's charting out that she really wants to give them grace and figure it out for the first couple months and then know exactly what they are, who they are by mid-July at the All-Star break, and then hit the ground running after that and go from there. John, you're welcome. Appreciate you subscribing. You too, Mike. Appreciate all the support here. Philip says playing alongside Caitlin is like getting a virtual masterclass. That's why Halliburton is playing more like her. She makes everyone better. Even opponents raise their play. Absolutely. It also, the game's on national TV. You got a million eyes on you. You're going to be on social media clips. So that in itself elevates the feel and the significance of each game, both for her teammates and for the opponents as well. Thinking the one team you see at Scott, me thinking the one team you see go the very different direction is the Fever, and they got the GOAT and Caitlin Clark. Yeah, that's cool, man. A big fan, I can tell. And you guys you had to stick things out for about 10 years there, essentially, since 2016, since Tamika retired. Things were tough. But then now you're grossly rewarded. And the only thing I don't like, and I totally get it from a business standpoint, but I've had friends and fans reach out to me and be like, hey, I had season tickets that were relatively cheap, $25 a game 4 years ago. Well, now we're talking $100 a game or $80 a game per ticket. That makes it difficult on everyone. I understand that. It's got to be a right balance, I think, from the Fever, from the league, and from fans, because at some point you're going to price people out, but also you want to capitalize on this time, right? How many years were they in the red until right now? So it's a fine balance that they have to strike. When you want to be the best, every team is a rivalry. When you want to be the best, every team is a rivalry. That's an interesting thought. I disagree with that. No, I think you get up for every game when you want to be the best, but I don't think that makes it a rivalry, if that makes sense. Scott, love you on the podcast. Appreciate that, Seahawk. Peggy, wow. Appreciate you. Thank you for the support here, and thanks to anyone who has contributed here on my YouTube page or subscribed to Fieldhouse Files as well. Very much appreciated as we go through all of this together. I have plans to have my own Fever podcast page as well, by the way. Just only so much I can do right now between Fever, between Pacers, NBA Draft Combine. I need to get out at the track at IMS for the Indianapolis 500 in a week. Qualifying coming up starting on Saturday. So much going on. It's a great time to live here in Indianapolis, and just so much for all of us to talk about. And yes, the practice facility seems to be on time. I need to post an update of photos. Maybe I'll do that here in my next story and next couple. The ground has been leveled. First of all, the building, the old jail has been destroyed. It's been cleared out. The ground has been leveled, and now they're starting to put walls up. But it's still a couple of years away. That'll be done in time for the 2027 season. Not next year, but in 2 years. That is appropriately, by the way, when Caitlin will be coming off her rookie deal of note. But I appreciate everyone joining me for this live YouTube Fever preview, some WNBA talk, but especially a preview for the upcoming WNBA Fever season. Thanks to everyone for joining me. Thank you for your support, and I will talk to you all again very soon. Fever Sky, Saturday, 3 p.m. It'll air on ABC. Have a great night and morning, everyone.